Good morning. Good morning this morning. How are you all this morning? I am well and I hope that you are doing good. This morning, hey, you already know what time it is. It's time for 9 for 9 with me, Pastor Carzadean. Listen, this morning, hey, I want you to look around. I want you to see. I want you to make sure, find out who's watching you. I'm going to be right back and we're going to talk about that this morning. Who's watching you? Hey, I'm back. Good morning. If you're there, just give me a little good morning. Drop it in the comments this morning. I'd like to know you were here. But this morning, listen, I told you we're going to talk about this right here. Who's watching you? I'm not sure. You're not always sure. I know one person who's always watching us, but who's watching you this morning? I want to remind you of something. You know, at Rhema, the church I'm affiliated with, we always say this right here. Every person we meet is a prospective soul for the kingdom. And so, listen, this morning, we need to think about this. Who's watching you? Every person. Listen, when we talk about who's watching us, to do and the places we want to go, how we want to get ahead, how we want to stop being in the shuffle of life. Listen, we think about this thing called success. And when we talk about having success, let me just give you some definitions from the dictionary. Success, when we look at it, is to have a favorable or prosperous outcome. Has a couple of meanings. Or success can be the accomplishment of a good or bad purpose. Wow. The accomplishment of a good or bad purpose. The good or bad outcome of an undertaking. Bet you didn't think success had anything to do with anything bad. But that simply is meaning to us this morning that however successful we are, is our success at the level that we wanted it to be at? Is it great or is it less than great? When we talk about being successful, we have to think about who's watching you. When you are giving your service to anybody, whether you're in a business, whether you're on the sidelines, listen. Businesses, we want to flourish, we want to bring them up, we want to start them up, but we have to think about who we're serving. Because you know, when you're in a business, you're serving the public, you're serving the people. And I can just take a minute here and say, hey, when we're in kingdom work, we're serving the people. Hey, that's what he's called us for. So when we think about who's watching us and we think about the success of things, sometimes our success is based on who's watching us. Hey, listen. Success can be dependent on several factors. It can be dependent on you, on them, and on him. Who's watching you this morning? Whether you know it or not, or believe it or not, it can be dependent on who's paying attention, who's looking out, who's watching, whose side are you leaning on. So, who's watching you this morning? Who's making sure that you're getting it done and getting it done the right way? You see that watching us comes in different forms and fashions. Sometimes it's the people who we're serving that's watching. Sometimes it's the people who are benefiting our business, who are asking for our business, who are recipients of our business. And sometimes it's the people who are promoting our business, who are pushing our business out there. Pushers and promoters, you see. Listen, success is dependent upon who's watching you. Because you can be a great figure today and you can be taken down tomorrow. And many times businesses have fallen Businesses have failed because of who was watching, who was attentive to what they were doing, who was paying attention to your bookkeeping. When you thought you were slipping it by, when you thought you were stealing that money, or you were shuffling it into an account where nobody knew or the government, somebody was watching you. You know, I have this thing I have to tell you that there's always going to be a witness to everything you do. Oh my goodness. There's always going to be a witness, somebody who knows the story other than you. Even when you think you've hidden it, hey, who's watching you? When you think about wanting to be successful and come forward, and I know this sounds like a lot intertwined this morning, but it is, because it's not just a simple thing to go into a business. It's not just a simple thing to be successful. It's not a simple thing. There's some work that has to be done. And while you're yet working, while it's day to get it done, you have to pay attention to who's watching you. I said earlier something about every person we meet. Well, let me tell you, every person we meet is an encounter with the prospect. So be careful of how you treat the people who approach you. Be very careful even of how you treat the people who are patronizing, thank you, Lord, patronizing your business. Be careful of how you treat others, how you talk to others, and even how you talk about others. You know, sometimes we get into our business cliques even. Oh, y'all didn't think I knew about that. There's so many times that we have business cliques, and we will only promote those who promote us. Oh my goodness. I wonder if he's happy about that, because he's always watching. Who's watching you? Every opportunity we get to serve, that's every person we meet, is every person that we serve, every person that, hey, purchases your product, supports your product, every person who says, hey, listen, I got that. It was good. I got that. She was nice. Listen, you've got to care what people say about you, what people think about you, because when they're watching, sometimes they may not say anything to you, but they're going to say it to somebody else. So who's watching you? Who's watching you when you go out in public, but you say you're this way and yet you're another way? So when we're talking about this thing called success this morning, we're not just stuck on business either. We're talking about being successful even in our lives that we're living now. Listen, I have to tell you something I told my daughter when I sent her off to college. I said, listen, you're going to meet people from every walk of life. And I say to us today, we're meeting people from every walk of life. And that simply means we're meeting people, we're coming across people, we're encountering people that we may not have been raised like. We may not have been raised the same way they were raised. We may not know their culture. They may not know our culture. But listen, you hold fast to what you know is good, what you know is right, because you never know who's watching. And listen, don't you be swayed to the wrong side. Because they're watching, you sway them to the right side. I have to ask again, do you know who's watching you? When you come across these people from every walks of life, from different places, from different, oh my goodness, neighborhoods, even neighborhood to neighborhood, people can't get along all the time. You know, the east side, west side, south side, north side. But listen, who's watching you? Who's watching you when you leave the neighborhood or even when you're in the neighborhood? Pay attention to wherever you are, especially if some of those watching you are the young and the impressionable, the weak-minded maybe. You know, there are some people with weaker minds than us. My mind is weaker than somebody else's. And that's not an insult. And when I say weaker, I'm simply talking about they may not be as knowledgeable in this thing as you are in that thing. And so that makes them weaker. I'm weaker in some things than others. But listen, I'm reminded, though, that God tells me, in my weakness, his strength is made perfect. I've got to give you this, and it's almost time to go. I want you to consider Luke 12:24. It says, consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse or barn, and yet God feeds them. Of how much more are you? How much more value are you than the birds? He's watching you. He's keeping you. He's preparing you. Listen, when you come across those people from all walks of life, you need them to survive and you need him to provide. Did you hear me? You need them to survive because your business is no business without recipients, without customers. Listen, but you need him to provide the insight, to provide for you, to have the right people in the right place at the right time. Don't you seek out any person. You seek him first and his righteousness, and all of it's going to fall in place. Listen, that's my time, my 9 for 9 with a little overtime. But I want to tell you, I'm going to talk about this some more on Sunday. And I'll go ahead and give you my topic. Hey, know your worth and make your move. If you dare to join me Sunday morning at 9:45 a.m., listen, this is Pastor Carzadean. That's my 9 for 9 with some overtime, I'm sure, a couple of minutes of overtime. But listen, I want you to be okay. I want you to thrive. And I want you to make sure you know who's watching you. Everybody's watching you. Whether they're paying attention, you don't ever know. But listen, always do everything in excellence. And you don't have to worry about who's watching you because you'll be on point and on time. So listen, that's my time. And I'm going to start off by having you watch me take my sip of my cup of positivity. Bless you. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.